Good morning and welcome. Today we will be discussing the glomerular filtration rate and renal hemodynamics. Myself Dr. Prashant Tayde, Assistant Professor of Physiology in AIIMS, New Delhi. So to begin with, we must know the specific learning objectives of this module. So first objective is the student should be able to explain the components of glomerulus and the function, should be able to draw vascular arrangements around the nephron, should be able to define glomerular filtration rate and state its normal value, should know what the filtration fraction is and what is its normal value, should be able to enumerate the components of filtration barrier in glomerulus, should know what are the determinants of glomerular filtration rate and state their normal values, which includes various Starling forces, should know the significance of filtration coefficient and its normal value, should be able to describe various factors that affect each of these components, that is Starling forces involved in the glomerular filtration rate, should know the normal values of renal blood flow and plasma blood flow, should be able to state the effects of changing blood pressure on renal blood flow and glomerular filtration rate, that is GFR, should be able to explain the meaning of autoregulation of renal blood flow, should be able to describe the various mechanisms of autoregulation of the renal blood flow, then should be able name the components of juxtaglomerular apparatus, which is essential in tubuloglomerular feedback, one of the autoregulatory mechanism. So introducing the topic, as discussed previously, you might be knowing the nephron and its functional is a functional unit of kidney, how the structure is, and nephron carries out important functions of urine formation, such as the processes like glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption and tubular secretion. But to perform such functions, especially the glomerular filtration, which is of topic of concern today, is where we need the role of renal blood flow in the kidney to be understood. So to understand this, we need to understand the blood supply of kidney, which is shown in the figure. So the renal blood supply, the two kidneys receive about 22% of the cardiac output, so it comes out to be 1100 ml per minute. So in this slide, the arterial supply is by renal artery, which enters the kidney through hilum and undergoes branching sequentially. So this sequential branching involves interlobar arteries, then arcuate arteries leading to interlobular arteries, and then the afferent arterioles that lead to glomerular capillaries, which are enclosed inside the Bowman's capsule of nephron, and that performs the function of filtration of large amount of fluids and solutes except the plasma proteins. The interlobular arteries, in their anatomy, they go straight to the cortex, giving branches, and there is no anastomosis between the branches. After this, distal to the glomerulus, the capillaries coalesce to continue as efferent arteriole, which further leads to form peritubular capillaries that surrounds the renal tubules. So note that there are arteriolar ends on either side of the glomerular capillaries and not venules as in rest of the other body capillaries. The uniqueness of the renal circulation is that it provides two capillaries. The glomerular capillary tuft enclosed inside the Bowman's capsule, which has afferent and efferent arteriole on either sides. The narrow lumen of efferent arteriole builds up a high hydrostatic pressure of about 45 millimeters of mercury inside the glomerular capillary tuft. That is essential for function of glomerular filtration. And the other capillary is the peritubular capillary, which comes after the narrow lumen of efferent arterioles and has a low hydrostatic pressure of about 13 millimeters of mercury, which carry the second essential function of what is called a tubular reabsorption. And both glomerular capillaries and the peritubular capillaries are arranged in series, so that filtration and reabsorption takes place simultaneously. By adjusting the resistance of afferent and the efferent arteriolar diameters, the glomerular filtration and the tubular reabsorption is modified to fulfill the homeostatic demands of the body. The peritubular capillaries empty into the venous system sequentially to form interlobular vein, arcuate vein, interlobar vein, and finally lead to renal vein, which leaves the kidney adjacent to the renal artery and ureter. As the essential function performed is filtration, so the prime focus has to be glomerular microcirculation. So, the glomerular microcirculation is shown in the slide. Then the glomerular microcirculation is kept in check by the afferent and the efferent arteriole, which has peculiar vessel histology. Coming to the histology of afferent arteriole, the afferent arteriole lose their internal elastic layer and smooth muscle cell layer prior to entering the glomerular tuft. Also, the smooth muscle cells are replaced by granular cells called as renin producing cells that are in the close contact with the extraglomerular mesangium lying close to the distal convoluted tubule. This collectively form the essential part of juxtaglomerular apparatus, which will be discussed later on. The histology of efferent arteriole. The diameter of efferent arteriole within the tuft is significantly less than that of the afferent arteriole. This difference in diameter of afferent and efferent arterioles create a high hydrostatic force in glomerulus, which favors filtration. So, coming to the glomerular vascular supply coming after the glomerulus, that is post glomerular vessels. So, in parallel with the two types of nephrons discussed earlier, that is the large in the number cortical nephrons and the 20 to 30% of juxtamedullary nephrons, the vascular supply also differ in these two nephrons as shown in the figure. For cortical nephrons, there are extensive network of peritubular capillaries surrounding the entire tubules, while for juxtamedullary nephrons, the long efferent arteriole extend downward from cortex to the outer medulla and divide into specialized peritubular capillaries that extend down side by side parallel to the long loop of Henle. These capillaries, which has a very slow blood flow, are also called as vasa recta. So, the role of microcirculation. So, for cortical nephrons, the role is more of concern of water and electrolyte reabsorption, hence that the function is of tubular reabsorption carrying out by dense low hydrostatic pressure peritubular capillary networks surrounding proximal tubule segments of superficial nephrons. While the juxtamedullary nephrons, the process of concern is concentration of urine. This process is done by the specialized vasa recta mediated maintenance of medullary interstitial hyperosmolarity, which is generated by the loop of Henle, which will be discussed in the subsequent chapters. So, glomerular filtration, some points need to be known about it. So, to begin with, it is first step in the formation of urine, where the water soluble components of blood is filtered out of the glomerular capillaries into the Bowman space. The capillaries are relatively impermeable to proteins and cellular elements like RBCs, while rest all compositions are almost same as the plasma, such that the osmolarity of the filtrate is the same as that of the plasma. Calcium and fatty acids are bound to plasma proteins, hence cannot be filtered. So, important concept here is filtration fraction. Filtration fraction is the percentage volume of the plasma that is filtered through the glomerular capillaries. In human, the filtration fraction is about 20%, and for rat it is about 40%. So, coming to knowing about the filtrability of what solutes are allowed to pass through the glomerulus and what are not. So, filtrability of the solutes through glomerular capillaries depends on certain factors. The first factor regarding filtrability of solute is it is inversely proportional to the size of the solute. That is, size less than 2 nanometer can pass easily, while solutes of size of more than 5 nanometers cannot pass. The second factor here is the charge of the solute. So, negatively charged solutes are less easily filtered. For example, albumin is not filtered even though the size is 3.6 nanometer, which is less than 5 nanometer, and since the filtration is very precise, it is called as ultrafiltration. In this slide, we will focus on the filtration barrier shown in the figure. Gradually from the gross structure to the glomerular tuft, then maximizing the layers. So, physical barrier consists of endothelium, basement membrane and podocytes as the 3 layers through which we go from capillary end to the Bowman's capsule. And the percentage of resistance offered to the filtration by each of these layers is like this. The endothelium offers just 2%, basement membrane offers 48% resistance, podocytes offer 50% resistance. The capillary endothelium shows small fenestra of 100 nanometer size, which ensure high filtration rate. Also, the endothelium is rich in having fixed negative charge that repels plasma proteins. Outer to the endothelium layer towards the Bowman's side is the basement membrane layer, which consists of collagens or proteoglycans fibrillae that allows small solutes and water in large proportions. The basement membrane has strong negative electrical charges due to proteoglycans, leading to strong repulsion to the negatively charged proteins and hence effective prevention of plasma proteins filtration. And the last and the outermost layer on the Bowman's capsule side is formed by the cells having foot-like processes, and hence the name podocytes. The foot processes are separated by the gaps called as slit pores, each having effective pore size of about 5 nanometers. These are also negatively charged and does not allow plasma proteins to pass. In the negative charges on the basement membrane is lost in certain conditions, then the low molecular weight proteins such as albumin are easily filtered and begin to appear in the urine. This condition is called as proteinuria or albuminuria, and the loss of negative charges without any change in kidney histology is called as a minimal change nephropathy. So, in the next slide we will be discussing on the determinants of glomerular filtration. What are the forces that determine the glomerular filtration pressure? The GFR or glomerular filtration rate is determined by the sum of the Starling forces on the either side of glomerular membrane and the filtration coefficient of the capillary membranes as occur in the capillaries elsewhere. So, the Starling forces are hydrostatic forces and the colloidal osmotic force that at glomerular capillaries, and hydrostatic forces and colloidal. The osmotic force at Bowman's space as shown in the figure, the force that favor the filtration are glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure, that is PGC, is of about 45 millimeters of mercury, and colloidal osmotic pressure at Bowman's capsule pi T. Note that as the proteins are normally not filtered into the Bowman's space, the colloidal osmotic pressure at Bowman's space pi T is always 0. The forces that oppose the filtration are Bowman's capsule hydrostatic pressure Pt, which is about 10 mm of mercury, and glomerular capillary colloidal osmotic pressure, that is pi Gc, which increases as we go from afferent to the efferent end from 20 to 35 millimeters of mercury. The sum of these forces gives us the net filtration pressure across the glomerular membrane. The values of each of is given in the figure at both afferent end of capillary and towards the efferent end of the capillaries. The net direction of the pressure is from capillary end to the Bowman space. At the afferent end and the efferent end, it comes out to be 0. The reason is that the plasma proteins are not able to cross the capillaries, hence proteins are accumulated as going towards the efferent end, which leads to increased osmotic pressure towards the efferent end, resisting the hydrostatic pressure more distally, and the resultant net filtration pressure becomes 0. The net filtration pressure is considered to be 10 millimeters of mercury. The net filtration pressure, that is PUF. The filtration coefficient, the another parameter, as abbreviation is Kf. The filtration coefficient is actually the product of hydraulic conductivity. Hydraulic conductivity is the ease at which the solutes are able to pass. So, it is a product of hydraulic conductivity and surface area provided for filtration, that is Kf is equal to hydraulic conductivity into surface area. Hence, the determinants of the GFR is given by GFR equal to Kf, that is filtration coefficient, multiplied by net filtration pressure. So, Kf, that is filtration coefficient, can be calculated by ratio of GFR and net filtration pressure. The GFR of both the kidneys is given by 125 ml per minute, and the net filtration pressure is taken out to be 10 millimeters of mercury. Hence, Kf, the filtration fraction, is 125 divided by 10, which is 12.5 ml per minute per millimeter of mercury of filtration pressure. If expressed in 100 milligram tissue, Kf is 4.2 ml per minute of mm of Hg, which is 400 times that of the other capillaries existent in the body. This high filtration coefficient Kf signify the requirement of higher fluid filtration rate at the glomerulus in the kidneys, while the other capillaries of body, the Kf is required for exchange of nutrient supply and metabolites in the tissues. Now, coming to the factors affecting these determinants, each of them. In this slide, the factors affecting the hydrostatic pressure at the level of glomerulus. The hydrostatic pressure at the glomerulus is affected directly by number 1, the systemic blood pressure existent in the body. Number 2, contraction and the relaxation of the afferent and the efferent arteriole based on the various conditions. That is increasing and decreasing the resistance of afferent and the efferent arterioles, and seeing what it causes is shown in the figure 6 and figure 7, which shows the effect of increasing afferent arterial resistance and efferent arterial resistance respectively, and seeing the effect on renal blood flow and GFR. Now, as the afferent arterial resistance is increased, then both renal blood flow and GFR decreases, and as the efferent arterial resistance is increased, then the renal blood flow is certainly decreased, but the GFR is increases initially and decreases later. The reason for this biphasic response of increase initial and decreases later is due to the plasma proteins, which are unable to be filtered, go on accumulating towards the distal end, causing increased colloidal osmotic pressure and offering resistance to the net hydrostatic pressure, decreasing the GFR as the resistance is increased. To summarize, the vascular constriction, what are the effects on the pressure and flow So, vascular contraction at the level of afferent arteriole decreases the pressure and decreases the flow, and vascular constriction at the efferent arteriole increases the pressure and decreases the flow. Now, coming to the factors affecting oncotic pressure at the glomerulus, in the same diagram the biphasic response is where the oncotic pressure is reflected. So, the colloidal osmotic pressure is affected by first concentration of proteins and the filtration fraction, which is shown in the diagram regarding the plasma proteins. Now, coming to the factors affecting hydrostatic pressure at the Bowman's capsule. The hydrostatic pressure at the Bowman's capsule is very less normally, and so less that it can't resist the glomerular capillaries pressure. But in certain conditions there is increased backflow from below which can raise the hydrostatic pressure at the Bowman's capsule. For example, in the urinary obstructive conditions such as urinary stones, or if any tumors pressing the ureter below, or edema of renal capsule, there will be backflow and increased hydrostatic pressure at Bowman's capsule, which will eventually decrease the GFR. Now, coming to the factors affecting filtration coefficient, that is Kf. So, firstly the physiological factors. Physiological factors is dynamic changes in the mesangial cell contractility. Mesangial contraction leads to decreased surface area of glomerular capillaries, and hence the filtration coefficient reduces. So, mesangial contraction leads to the decreased surface area of the glomerular capillaries, and hence the filtration coefficient reduces. Now, pathologically, the disorders of glomerular filtration barrier function, for example, diabetic nephropathy and chronic renal failure, in those conditions, for example, the uncontrolled diabetes mellitus can affect the filtration coefficient, that is Kf, of the kidneys by slowly decreasing the filtration coefficient by increasing thickness of the glomerular capillary basement membrane, reducing the hydraulic conductivity and simultaneously reducing the surface area of the capillaries also. In the next slide, so in the sum total of the total cardiac output, the renal parameters are: the total renal blood flow in ml per minute is 1200, that is 20% of the cardiac output. The renal plasma flow in ml per minute is 670 based on the hematocrit, and the glomerular filtration in ml per minute is about 130 or taken as 125 ml per minute also. So, out of this parameter we will decide what are the cortical flow and what is medullary flow. So, normally the cortical flow is 85 to 90% and medullary flow is 10 to 15% only. Now, it is essential to note that during shock medullary flow is actually preserved at the cost of cortical flow. Renal blood flow exceeds the metabolic demand for its function to be done. The regulation of renal blood flow is more for number 1, glomerular filtration of the fluid, number 2, peritubular and vasa recta reabsorption of the fluid. So, hence it is essential to know about the regulation of GFR and the renal blood flow. So, before knowing the regulation, you must know what is the effect of the blood pressure on it. So, the most fluctuating parameter that can affect the renal system is the systemic blood pressure of the person. With increased blood pressure will raise the glomerular hydrostatic pressure, which might damage the glomerular capillaries, that is the basement membrane. Hence, there has to be maintenance of relative consistency of renal blood flow and glomerular capillary pressure despite changes in the systemic blood pressure, as shown in the graph shown below. There is a increased systemic blood pressure, both renal blood flow and GFR increases initially and reach to a plateau, after which the systemic blood pressure does not affect the GFR and renal blood flow. This dampening effect on the blood pressure requires some autoregulatory mechanisms that are present in the kidney. So, in the figure shows the effect as of dampening of the effect of pressure on urine flow. So, the dampening effect is due to the autoregulation of blood flow and the second is tubuloglomerular feedback, which eventually I will be telling you. So, in the table it is shown the autoregulatory mechanisms, and these are essentially two, that is myogenic mechanism and tubuloglomerular feedback mechanism. We will just compare them. The myogenic mechanism operates at the level of whole kidney, while tubuloglomerular feedback operates at the level of individual nephron. The myogenic is a high frequency response, quickly changes with BP, while tubuloglomerular response is the low frequency response, that is slowly changes in effect. The myogenic mechanisms takes 10 seconds to, while the tubuloglomerular feedback 20 to 60 seconds. Myogenic mechanism is mainly pre-glomerular, and tubuloglomerular is both pre-glomerular and post-glomerular vessels, both are applied here, and mainly the juxtamedullary nephrons show the tubuloglomerular feedback response. So, now knowing the intrinsic myogenic mechanism first. As the blood pressure in the pre-glomerular vessel is increased, leads to stretching of the vessel wall, leading to constriction of the pre-glomerular vessels. This is a fast response and acts at the level of both the kidneys at one point of time. Details given as above. While tubuloglomerular feedback response, this is a autoregulatory modulation of glomerular filtration rate, and it is in response to the fluid composition, particularly the sodium chloride delivery at the level of distal convoluted tubule, and hence it is called as the tubuloglomerular feedback. Anatomical arrangement of macula densa cells, extraglomerular mesangial cells, vascular smooth muscle cells, renin secreting cells of the afferent arteriole. Since the all essential cells are in close approximations to the glomerulus, this arrangement is also known as the juxtaglomerular apparatus, shown in the figure. The juxtaglomerular apparatus in the diagram as shown, diagram shows the renal corpuscle structure. A signifies the renal corpuscle, B is proximal tubule, C is distal convoluted tubule, D is juxtaglomerular apparatus, in which one is basement membrane, 2 is Bowman's capsule parietal layer, 3 is Bowman's capsule visceral layer, 3A are the pedicles, that is food processes from the podocytes, 3B is the podocyte proper, 4 is Bowman's space, 5A is intraglomerular mesangial cells, 5B is extraglomerular mesangial cells, 6 shows granular cells, 7 macula densa, 8 smooth muscle, 9 is afferent arteriole, 10 is glomerular capillaries, 11 is efferent arteriole. Now, as the blood pressure increases, causes increase in GFR, leading to a more sodium chloride delivered at the macula densa cells of the distal convoluted tubule, which causes afferent arterial vessels to constrict, causing decrease in GFR, decreasing the sodium chloride delivery at the distal tubule. Since tubular sodium chloride sensing changes the GFR, hence it is called as tubuloglomerular feedback. The macula densa cells sensing of the NaCl causes adenosine mediated calcium influx in smooth muscle cells of the afferent arteriole and leads to constriction. Also, it decreases renin release from the granular cells of the juxtaglomerular apparatus, further decreasing blood pressure due to decrease in RAS, that is renin angiotensin aldosterone mechanism. So, in this slide, to summarize, look the flow chart below, the same will be shown. Now, coming to the physiological control besides these above mentioned mechanisms, there are certain other influences on the GFR that need to be known as mentioned below. The first is strong sympathetic activation decreases GFR. Must know that renal cortical shutdown in the crisis situation is mandatory through sympathetic stimulation. The other effects are shown by hormones and certain autocoids. So, these are norepinephrine, epinephrine and endothelin constricts the renal blood vessels. Angiotensin II prevents decrease in hydrostatic pressure and increases peritubular reabsorption. The endothelial derived nitric oxide decreases the afferent and efferent arterial resistance and increases the GFR. Prostaglandin E2 and prostaglandin I2, PGI2 and bradykinin are vasodilators and hence increase GFR. NSAIDs, that is non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, is not to be given in the post-surgical volume depleted and renal failure patient, as NSAIDs are prostaglandin inhibitors and will cause afferent vasoconstriction, decreasing the GFR and further deteriorating patient's condition. Hence, finally, to summarize, we begin this topic with the understanding of renal blood flow first and renal vasculature along cortical and juxtamedullary nephron. In this, we have seen that the cortical nephrons serves the function of tubular reabsorption and juxtamedullary nephrons serve the function of making the medullary interstitium hyperosmolar with the help of the specialized vessels vasa recta going parallel to loop of Henle, causing concentration of urine. Then we discussed the Starling forces, which are the determinants of GFR, and the factors that affect these individual Starling forces separately. To maintain urine output, kidneys autoregulate the GFR and renal blood flow by altering the resistance of the afferent and the efferent arteriole. Then we discussed the constriction of efferent arteriole increases the GFR and urine output and vice versa. In autoregulation, we have discussed intrinsic myogenic mechanisms first, which is generalized mechanism, and tubular glomerular feedback mechanism, which along with the understanding of the juxtaglomerular apparatus. So, tubular glomerular feedback along with the understanding of juxtaglomerular apparatus. In the tubular glomerular feedback, it acts at the level of individual nephron. So, this concludes the topic. Thank you very much.